A federal judge out of California striking down a measure that is very similar to a recently enacted Illinois law that also faces a challenge, and that's the law that allows for really anyone to sue the firearms industry on how they advertise. Welcome back. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News and Talk. So here's the story. A U.S. appeals court Wednesday blocking California's law banning gun manufacturers and the industry that advertise a certain way to minors, saying that it was likely to be found unconstitutional, therefore issuing a temporary restraining order or a preliminary injunction. I think it's, different terminology really meaning the same thing here. But the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which only affects those jurisdictions within the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So it'll be interesting to see how this ultimately plays into the lawsuits in the Fifth Circuit here in Illinois, with a case in front of the Southern District that's challenging Illinois' law that allows for individuals to sue the gun industry, even those from outside of Illinois, to sue the gun industry in Illinois if they target minors with certain types of advertising, or if they, say, advertise for militia type of activity. So this story goes on to highlight how the circuit courts in California, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, really said that California's law does not significantly advance its purported goal and is more extensive than necessary. California Attorney General's office didn't immediately respond, but you do have Gavin Newsom making a statement, as is reported. And ultimately, he laid out that he thinks that this decision was a bad decision. Newsom says that the court is fighting to protect marketing weapons of war to children. A junior AR-15. They have endorsed this. The governor says, and then it provides like a little kind of cartoonish type of advertisement that he says is problematic. So obviously this is not over. You got to imagine that California could very well go ahead and appeal this and have it go on up. But how is this similar to Illinois' law? Obviously, this is something that we take a look at here in the states because of the ongoing litigation in the federal courts challenging this. But let's go ahead and, flash back a bit to last month, when Governor J.B. Pritzker on a Saturday decided to go to a gun control advocacy group, and they were having a convention of sorts up in Chicago, and he signed the law that allows for lawsuits against the gun industry. Here's how that played out when they ultimately went and signed that particular piece of legislation.
Under the leadership of Raul, the state of Illinois will now be allowed to take legal action against firearm industry players that endanger the public safety and health of our people. We hold opioid manufacturers accountable. We hold vaping companies accountable. We hold predatory lenders accountable. Gun manufacturers shouldn't get to hide from the law, and now they won't be able to.
Now, I want to make sure, because, we've got folks in court cases who tend to use what I say. It is important to know that this law in no way targets those in the firearm industry who operate in a lawful manner. What this law does is clarify that the firearm industry, like any other business, must comply with the Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Practices Act. The legislation establishes that the firearm industry members who knowingly violate the law and endanger the public when selling firearms, for example, by not taking already required steps to prevent sales to straw purchasers, are liable for those irresponsible practices. It prohibits marketing that reasonably appears to support unlawful paramilitary and unlawful private militia. And it reminds gun industry members that you cannot market to our kids.
We do not tolerate.
So it goes on from there, and you remember when we reviewed that particular bill signing and all the arguments that were made by the sponsors of the legislation and so on. But what's the status of the case challenging that? Pulling that up here, looking at the docket from the federal court system, and this again is in the Southern District of Illinois, the federal courts there. The latest entry was late last month, and it was just a judge reassignment. And again, you had several judges reassigned here, including Judge Stephen McGlenn being assigned at one point, but ultimately they had the magistrate judge Stacey Yandel take on the case. So we'll see where this ultimately goes with more hearings and more filings expected here soon. So you've got the orders and the briefs that are all going to be stacking up in this case. But this is similar to the law that a appeals court in California just found that was likely to be unconstitutional, and a temporary restraining order on California's law being issued yesterday. So not only do we have the New Mexico temporary restraining order, we had the California temporary restraining order, different issues, but still impacting the Second Amendment, while we still wait here in Illinois for any kind of outcome of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, who has the arguments in hand challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban pending. And that Second Amendment challenge, who knows when they're going to issue their ruling, because it's expected that's going to go right to the U.S. Supreme Court once that happens, when it happens. So we're still watching for any outcome there. But while we're waiting for that outcome, obviously, we're seeing what's happening in other areas of the country. And I think this California court order is going to be used by Illinois plaintiffs in the Illinois challenge of a similar law, allowing for government to target the gun manufacturers and the gun industry when it comes to liability and a host of other things. So that's the latest here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. You can always follow along with me, Bishop on Air, on X, formerly known as Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, so we can connect. You can email me as well, bishoponair@gmail.com.